Our next segment focuses on the written word. From early newsletters and magazines to today's blogs, the power of the written word has connected LGBT people in communities across the country. In the Life looks at how we communicated in the past and the evolution of our messaging and coded language.
The written word goes in cycles. New technology, I think, has fueled this new wave.
People just assume that gay was everywhere, that there was gay media everywhere you turn. That's a fallacy.
In the 1930s or 1940s, in the era before there were any gay publications available, you had to engage in a whole variety of sort of underground practices in many ways.
It used to be you had to search for it. You had to use coded words. You had to meet in dark alleys and try to find another gay while looking for the cops behind your back.
People were fired for being gay, thrown out of their housing for being gay, put in jail for being gay. It was all very secretive.
In that era, you were so isolated, and it really did seem that you'd never find anybody else, or that maybe you were the unique aberration on the planet.
Back during this era, most queer communications were coded. Interests: camping, nature study, cave exploring. Short story writing, collecting of foreign paper money. There were a lot of these sort of contact clubs and hobbyist magazines. They could, in fact, provide a portal, really, into the gay world. A creative reader would begin to realize that, you know what, maybe I should start up a correspondence with this gentleman in San Francisco, share my interest in male physique photography, and who knows where it might lead.
When I wrote my first book, I really didn't have any of that in my vocabulary. I picked up the coded language of that era as I went along. I knew a few technical terms, but even those were hard to find. I mean, if you went into the library, they had to unlock the stacks and let you in, and then you got funny looks. A lot of those words ended up on the covers of the lesbian pulps. Words like shadow or twilight or secret. All that sort of stuff, which was very titillating, was immediately translated by the women who were looking for the pulps as, oh, I found one, I found one.
Then you have the emergence of a whole series of organizations. Collectively, these organizations were called the Homophile Movement. They established the first robust, permanent, candid, queer print culture.
Mankind started in the 50s. The purpose was to present to society people that were no different from anybody else in society, the straight society, if you want to call it that.
The latter was the magazine of the Daughters of Blightus. For that closeted lesbian who wanted to come out, who thought we should have rights.
We decided to do a newsletter, which later turned out to be a magazine called The Ladder. We ran the first issue off on the mimeograph that the Mattachine Society had. We got as far as, I think, 165 copies before it went kaput.
You'd find little tiny pictures and great columns of words.
We mailed it out to everybody that anybody knew anywhere.
And you had the real feeling that people were reading it from cover to cover and then giving it to a friend who gave it to a friend who gave it to a friend.
It was a great hit because there hadn't been anything like that out.
So one thing that starts to happen by the end of the 1960s, the mass media started to do some of the work that these smaller publications were trying to do. They began to talk about homosexuality and ease people out of isolation into some knowledge, into some connection with a wider gay world. Differentiation happens with the ability of people to represent themselves and their desires in ever-increasing detail.
The newspapers were very important to us back then, the gay men's papers too. Back then, it was the written word, and it really moved people. If you picked up a copy of The Lesbian Tide, you'd find it kind of pushing the edge sort of topics sexually, but in a political way, and music and culture, and everything else that was going on in the community.
By the late 1960s, there were hundreds. By the 1970s, there were thousands of these publications that were very explicitly gay. They were distributed in gay bookstores.
The gay and lesbian bookstores were a godsend when they began to happen, and they were not only places to find books you couldn't find anywhere else, they became social hubs.
The gay bookstores in particular were wonderful sort of places to meet and mingle and find other people interested in literature or even just trash. I loved Oscar Wilde, I loved Different Light. I had events there, and it was also a place for me to connect with my readers.
These places that people used to go to find connection are now really disappearing because people are now going online.
With the internet, there was just an avalanche of gay media. There were gay websites. You could turn to certain places for gay news.
There's a large amount of LGBT bloggers that are breaking news, that are breaking stories, that are connecting the dots in ways that sometimes mainstream publications can't do.
I have the ability to sort of share information with people that they wouldn't necessarily get on like a mainstream news outlet, which is stuff like anti-gay hate crimes that are being committed across the country, which aren't covered, you know, on CNN.
It's like a Wild West situation nowadays where anybody can start their own blog. Where do I fit in? Well, I'm doing a blog too, so I've joined them. They can't even hold a candle to how gay my blog and my column are.
Delisted is, you know, it's like a potpourri. There's, you know, stories about real people. From a gay point of view, there's animal stories. People like those. They like a kitten on a vacuum for some reason.
There is a certain gay speak. We have certain phrases, fierce, girlfriend, work it, you know? And that comes from being an oppressed minority that had to learn how to communicate to each other, how to find each other in places way back when it was illegal to be gay.
As we've evolved and gays have become more accepted in society, the need for coding your profile so that nobody knows that you're a man seeking a man has really gone away. The internet has taken the way that everybody, not just gay people, are able to meet and interact and find each other to a much easier, much better level.
Nowadays, any isolated gay person out there has a better shot at finding your best friends online.
The internet has given a huge platform for gay people. You know, there are readers who write me that don't know any gay people, and now they do because they're reading me every day.
Every community has its isms and its nuances that are developed out of our own culture, that are rich in its history, and quite frankly are some of those things that bring us together.